Welcome back to another episode Deep Dive, and boy do we have a good one today. Let's talk about the 2020 Mercedes Benz CLA. I'm sure you're all familiar with the CLA, but regardless, it was Mercedes' attempt to attract a younger crowd into their brand with exciting styling and an affordable price point, all with the hopes that those owners would eventually graduate into more expensive models over time.
We all have to start somewhere.
That's all fine and dandy, but the first CLA had a few issues that kept it from being the right vehicle for some people. To name a few examples, its front-wheel drive bias and its relatively basic interior were a few shortcomings. So let's take a deep dive into the new generation for 2020 and see if any of these fatal flaws have been successfully reworked. The first generation CLA sold quite well for Mercedes, but it also drew some criticism. So how does one make an entry-level model more premium without turning away potential buyers by increasing the price? Well, if you're Mercedes, you make a new entry model, I guess. Mercedes ended up bringing the A220 to the US with a similar notion to the original CLA, to be a sporty, fresh, and affordable entry point into the Mercedes family. Let me know in the comments down below if you're interested in seeing a follow-up deep dive episode exploring the new A220 model. But for the CLA, the introduction of the A-Class means that the CLA benefits from moving up a rung on the ladder. As such, the 2020 CLA gets a bit bigger and a bit more premium. But is that losing sight of the purpose of its place in the lineup? And does this change the value proposition with the CLA? Hopefully by the end of this video you will be able to decide that for yourself, because those are very personal questions. So let's start with the exterior and overall styling of the new 2020 CLA. We don't see huge changes here. The exterior receives a bit of a facelift and evolutionary upgrades. Most notably, the body lines have been smoothed out a bit, making the CLA resemble more of a baby CLS than anything else. Looking closely, you may be able to tell that the wheelbase has grown by roughly an inch and the length has grown by over 2 inches. Track width also grows substantially, up 2.5 inches in the front and 2.2 inches in the rear, which, when paired with other suspension upgrades, creates an improved ride quality compared to the outgoing models. Moving inside the 2020 is where we really start to see the goodies of this new generation. The dash and infotainment finally received the much needed upgrade to Mercedes' typical dual screen system, complete with the newest software and voice recognition for controls. Clearly, in this new generation, attention was paid to improving the quality as well as the technology within the interior, which again really draws in a younger crowd. As a side effect to this, the CLA is really starting to feel more like a proper Mercedes-Benz rather than the cheapest offering that is very clearly an entry model. It really earns that name as a true Mercedes-Benz with this generation. There are a couple other nice options I'd like to point out, like two-tone color palettes and multicolor ambient lighting that really help dress up the interior as well. In terms of in-car technology, some of the standouts include adaptive cruise control with lane keeping assistance that will also change lanes and handle some turns on its own. This new system is really well refined and is overall a great system that we're starting to see in some of these new Mercedes-Benz vehicles. This new system is a big step up from basic radar cruise control and is, dare I say it, approaching Tesla levels of autonomy. Other improvements are seen within the driving characteristics of the new CLA. Similar to the last generation, the steering and brakes maintain a good, sporty feel with an acceptable amount of road feedback. The expanded track of the vehicle helps it feel a bit more planted on the road while not being any less nimble or agile than the previous model. The power plant is a similar but still updated version of the 2-liter inline 4-cylinder from last generation, putting out 221 horsepower this go around. The 7-speed dual-clutch transmission has been revamped as well, which is a much-needed improvement. Shifts are much more crisp, and the overall drivability, especially at low speeds, has improved greatly from the previous generation, but it's not quite perfect yet. At low speeds in particular, it is a bit clunky and unrefined and lagging behind some of the competition that is using ZF-source 8-speed transmissions, or say Audi for example, which is using a better 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. Speaking of the competition, however, what does the CLA compete with? This entry-level German segment has really gotten crowded recently, but the main competitors would be the A3 lineup from Audi and the 2 Series lineup from BMW. BMW has also recently added the 2 Series Grand Coupe into the mix. The new CLA is without a doubt a leg up on both the Audi and the BMW 2 Series in terms of technology, but for driving and performance, it really comes down to personal preference. So let me know in the comments down below which of those 3 German brands you prefer in terms of driving character. Lastly, I should also note that Audi's lineup, which is starting to feel pretty dated by comparison, is being refreshed later this year, and we will see an all-new generation hitting lots as a 2021 model year. This new generation should set up Audi to better compete with this new CLA with a refreshed interior, a refined amount of technology, and overall a bit bigger and nicer vehicle. If you'd like to learn more about Audi's upcoming lineup for the A3, you can check out our quick look video where we take a look at the new generation and preview some of the changes that are coming. But back in the Mercedes camp, we are still missing on one key piece of information, and that's the price. Starting just shy of $36,000, the new CLA jumps up by nearly $5,000 in terms of price. Meanwhile, the new A-Class steps in to take over the $30-ish thousand starting price within the lineup. So Mercedes does maintain that $30,000 entry point, however it is no longer CLA, as we prefaced in the beginning of this video. While this is a big jump in starting price, I'd argue that there's a lot of new features and technology within this vehicle and a lot of refinement that works to actually kind of justify this price, and overall I'm not put off by this increase in price with the new CLA. For me, the part that's harder to swallow is once you start speccing out and optioning out this vehicle, the price can really skyrocket. That price can quickly jump to over $50,000, which is a lot of money to pay for a sporty German with only 221 horsepower. So given that price for a fully loaded model, even with all the new features, I think it's a bit of a harder sell for me. So I think the sweet spot is really an entry level to kind of mid-range spec if you're looking at it from a value proposition. But again, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Deep Dive. If you're new to the channel, make sure you get subscribed and hit that little bell icon to be notified of our future uploads. We have a show called Quick Look every Tuesday and a deep dive episode like this one every Thursday. And I think the name should be pretty self-explanatory for you to figure out the format of each one. Peace out, guys. I'll see you next week.